Live from WRAL News Headquarters in Raleigh, your number one source for local news. WRAL News, coverage you can count on.
This afternoon, we're likely to see thunderstorms developing that could produce some severe weather. I'll show you the timeline. Plus, the brand new information from the National Hurricane Center shows a very strong hurricane approaching Florida by Wednesday. I'll show you how it could affect us here.
Students at North Carolina State University are on edge after a report of a sexual battery just a week after classes began. The steps the university is taking to increase safety.
And no bond for the man charged with killing Moore County resident Alicia Watts. We're live outside the courthouse where family was there for the hearing.
Tropical storm Idalia is strengthening in the Gulf of Mexico. Good afternoon to you. I'm Jeff Hogan.
And I'm Renee Chu. Thanks for joining us. It could become a major hurricane before it makes landfall in Florida. Florida is, of course, no stranger to storm season, and people are wasting no time getting ready. Sandbags are a must for anyone living near sea level, especially with the 6 to 10 inches of rain in the forecast. Elizabeth Gardner is in the WRAL Severe Weather Center with a look at what our local impacts will be. Elizabeth.
We're definitely looking at some heavy rain potentially out of the system. I'm going to back it up right here and talk about what's happening right now. 80 miles south of the western tip of Cuba. It is not yet a Category 1 hurricane. It looked like it might strengthen that much by the time it reaches the tip of Cuba, which is right here. Once it moves up here into the Gulf of Mexico, it's going to encounter some very warm water, which could cause rapid intensification, becoming a major hurricane before it makes landfall in Florida. We'll take a look at the new forecast track. And of course, this brings us to 8 a.m. on Wednesday, 115 mile per hour winds. So this is going to be a real doozy for the coast of Florida. They could see up to 11-foot storm surge here. And of course, very strong winds, flooding and some heavy rain. Then it takes a turn and really moves back out into the Atlantic and hugs the coast of North Carolina. The center of circulation at 8 a.m. on Thursday is going to be very close to Wilmington with 60 mile per hour winds. And of course, we'll have some heavy rain. Parts of North Carolina are in that cone of uncertainty, and a little bit of our viewing area is as well. And so we're going to be watching that very, very closely. And of course, we also have Hurricane Franklin that we're watching. It's a Category 4 storm already and is likely to move past Bermuda as a Category 3. And that's a little bit of a change since this morning, where it looks like it's going to be a little bit stronger passing Bermuda. And of course, we have the potential to see some rip current danger with that system. We're also, of course, watching what's happening on the dual Doppler 5000 radar. This is unrelated to anything tropical, but we have a stalled front that's bringing some rain, especially to our southeastern counties. You can see that green box. That's where we have a flood warning that's in effect, not in our viewing area, but we could see some heavy rain in some of the cells that start to develop a little later on. We do have that level 1 risk for severe storms, and we'll walk through Futurecast for you, looking at the development of some storms by 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Could affect some kids as they're coming home from school, but we'll likely see those intensify by 7, 8, 9 o'clock and linger into midnight or even beyond. And that's where they may end up being a little bit heavier. Coming up, we're going to talk a little bit more about Idalia and talk about some specifics here in terms of how much rain we could see and what the winds will look like.
Elizabeth, thanks. Just 1 week after classes started at NC State, and already students are dealing with crime on campus. Last night, an alert went out warning about a sex crime at Owen Hall. WRAL's Eric Miller has been digging into this story for us. Eric, you've gotten some new information from the university within the last hour.
Renee, NC State confirms they do have cameras in, on, and around Owen Hall. And right now, as we speak, police are reviewing footage from those cameras, trying to find the 2 men responsible. Now, we know all of this happened last night. That's when a wolf alert went out to everyone in the NC State community. It said police had gotten a report of a sexual battery here at Owen Hall. The university hasn't provided any specifics or any details on what happened, besides clarifying to say that there were no weapons involved here whatsoever. They do say that 2 men were responsible, but right now there's no description of either man. For many students we've talked to, this alert, especially coming so close to the start of the school year, is deeply concerning.
It's scary knowing that kind of thing goes on here. I mean, I know it does because it happens everywhere, but it's scary.
Now, this isn't the first wolf alert or sex crime that students have had to deal with here on the NC State campus this school year. Just a week ago, a man was arrested for exposing himself inside an NC State library. Now, a lot of students we've talked to here today, they say they are taking precautions here, girls especially, saying they're avoiding walking alone, always walking with a friend. And for one student we talked to, she said she is now going to make sure that the door on her dorm room is locked at all times. Renee?
Eric Miller reporting live from NC State. Eric, thank you.
No bond for the boyfriend charged with murdering Alicia Watts. James Dunmore made his first court appearance this morning in Montgomery County, where Alicia's body was found Thursday afternoon. WRAL's Chelsea Donovan has been covering this case since Alicia Watts disappeared July 16th. She joins us live right now from the town of Troy, where she spoke with a family spokesperson there.
Jeff, the family didn't allow cameras in the courtroom. I'm sorry, the judge didn't allow cameras in the courtroom here in Montgomery County today, where about a dozen Alicia Watts' friends and family showed up. Dunmore made his first appearance very quickly, 6 minutes long. He came with a mask on and shackles on his hands and his feet, and he said very little this morning. Now, 51-year-old Dunmore was arrested on Thursday in Charlotte at his home. At the same time, Alicia's body was found in the woods near the town of Norman. That's here in Montgomery County. Moore County investigators told me on Friday that her body was found in plain sight, and they had been to that location 7 to 8 times before she was found, following leads that included digital evidence. Now, today in court, Dunmore was appointed an attorney, as he said he had no income. That will be a provisional attorney, and then he will be appointed a capital defender, as he is facing the death penalty or life in prison without parole if convicted on this charge of murder. The family, as you would imagine, incredibly emotional in court seeing Dunmore come out of jail. Brenda Smith is speaking today on behalf of Alicia's mother.
If he is the one that did it, she said that he deserved to have his eyes closed, just like her daughter's eyes is closed and never will be open again.
You'll hear from more of Alicia's family and friends coming up in our later newscast. As far as Dunmore, he'll remain here in Montgomery County in their jail under no bond. He's expected back in court on September 14th.
About a dozen of those family members in court today. Chelsea Donovan in Troy, thanks for that update.
It's the first day of school for traditional calendar students for Wake County Public Schools. Parents were warned to expect delays due to a shortage of school bus drivers. The school system is staggering pickup times, so some students may have arrived late, and after school, they may have to wait up to 40 minutes to catch the bus home. WRAL's Matt Tallhelm is live in Raleigh with a look at how things are going so far. Matt.
Yeah, Renee, and so far we haven't heard of any really big major problems here because there were so many of those warnings about what could happen here. Wake County Schools is short about 322 bus drivers right now. Some of those buses are back here at the West Millbrook Middle School bus depot here. They're getting refueled, getting checked out and ready to head back out there on those afternoon routes. Now, the buses started rolling out before dawn to pick up students. We counted 66 delays reported through the Here Comes the Bus app that the county uses. Most of those were running 20 to 35 minutes late. One bus to South Garner High School was delayed by an hour, and there were 2 buses that had mechanical issues that caused some delays up to 40 minutes. We talked to a freshman getting ready to start his first day at Millbrook High School. He was out there waiting for the bus to come right around 6:10 this morning.
I don't really like riding the bus, but that's okay. I feel pretty good though. I'm kind of excited to start the new high school, and there's different privileges that come with that, and also the sports. I love football and baseball, so.
Excited to start the day, but maybe not so early, waiting out there for the bus. Now, we were also there for the first day of classes at Fuquay-Varina High School. There are about 90,000 of the school system's 161,000 students who signed up to have a bus pick them up, take them to school. Again, we are waiting to hear if there have been any big problems. If you and your family experienced any of those, please let us know. But again, the most we've heard, they're about an hour late for some of those buses in the county today.
And good to know. So far, no major problems. We'll see what the afternoon brings. Matt Tallhelm, live in Wake County. WRAL is your back-to-school headquarters. Remember, you can find school bus route changes, start times, and safety measures on WRAL.com or on our WRAL News app. You'll be able to access the information around the clock.
And happening right now in the WRAL Live Center, this just into the newsroom. We got new information regarding former President Donald Trump and when he will go to trial. A judge says he will go to trial on March 4th of next year on charges alleging he worked to overturn the 2020 presidential election. In the hearing that happened earlier today, the judge rejected trial dates proposed by both the Justice Department and Trump's legal team. Prosecutors wanted that trial to begin in January of 2024, while Trump's lawyers actually asked for April of 2026. The trial date comes just one day before Super Tuesday, when many voters will head to the polls. We should also mention this afternoon that former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows wants his case moved to federal court. He is in court today discussing that. We're going to stay on top of that and bring you the latest from the Live Center.
Thanks, Michelle. The U.S. Department of Transportation ordered American Airlines to pay more than $4 million for violating federal DOT rules. It's the largest fine ever for tarmac delay violations. That rule prohibits tarmac delays of 3 hours or more on domestic flights without allowing passengers to get off the plane. Federal investigators found that between 2018 and 2021, American Airlines allowed 43 flights to break that rule. In addition, passengers were not given food or water.
Wake County is making the largest investment in state history to protect farmland. Today, county leaders announced Wake County will commit $400,000 to preserve 112 acres of land near Wendell. It's part of the county's expanded farmland preservation program. The investment will set up a conservation easement that will prevent the farmland from being developed. County leaders say Wake is losing farmland at one of the fastest rates in the country, and that this program will help preserve agriculture in the area.
I believe this is just the beginning. I think there's lots of counties that are looking at ways to start preserving farmland. A lot of counties are kind of behind the power curve, and this is something that's very forward-thinking by our county commissioners and all the partners that are here today.
Wake County partnered with the Triangle Land Conservancy as well as the U.S. Department of Agriculture to set up the project.
Next at noon, new details in the shooting death of 3 black people in Jacksonville, Florida. What is leading investigators to say this was racially motivated?
Also, Florida's Gulf Coast is dealing with a gas contamination problem. What could be mixed with regular gasoline and where it was sold?
Plus, a brand new track of Tropical Storm Idalia, where it's headed and how strong it could become.
Download the new WRAL streaming apps on Roku, Fire TV, Apple TV, and Android TV.
There are new details in the fatal shooting of 3 black people at a store in Jacksonville, Florida.
Police say it was racially motivated, indicating the white 21-year-old gunman left behind a suicide note and pages of hate-filled writings. NBC's Jay Gray has more from Jacksonville, Florida.
Hey there, and you can see the scene behind me still locked down at this point. Investigators searching for any evidence that may help them understand how and why this happened. We know the 21-year-old suspect was armed with a pistol and assault rifle. His first victim killed in the parking lot, an employee sitting in his car. Then he walked inside, let some of the customers inside leave before killing 2 of them. As he started to leave the store, police started to move in. He rushed into an office in the store, barricaded himself, and eventually took his life. We know that both of the weapons were purchased legally. The rifle was marked with writings and swastikas. The suspect apparently with no criminal record before this attack. His first stop was just about a mile away at an historically black college. It's Edward Waters University, where he pulled in behind the library there. We know he used it at least as a staging area, putting on a tactical vest and mask, and then was confronted by campus security. There was an exchange, not sure exactly what was said, but he decided to leave. Even though The Jacksonville sheriff tells us that he did have an opportunity to open fire there. He chose not to and drove a mile to the store that's just behind us here. This investigation is continuing and will for quite some time. In fact, the FBI now involved in the process. That's the latest from here in Jacksonville. I'm Jay Gray. Now back to you.
The racial shooting in Jacksonville comes as the nation celebrates today's 60th anniversary of the famous March on Washington. It was August 28, 1963. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his I Have a Dream speech. You're looking at a live picture right now of the MLK Monument in D.C. He and 250,000 people gathered on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial for one of the most significant moments of the civil rights movement. This past weekend, thousands from across the nation, including right here in the Triangle, held events to celebrate the historic march.
And happening right now in the WRAL Live Center, we're tracking some breaking news from overseas. Prosecutors have opened an investigation into Spain soccer chief Luis Rubiales that actually could end in sexual aggression charges. The case centers around that unwanted kiss Rubiales gave to star player Jenny Hermoso after Spain won the Women's World Cup. Rubiales has been suspended by FIFA for 90 days. He said that he made a mistake but called the kiss consensual, which Hermoso said she did not give her permission to be kissed and she felt violated. This afternoon, Rubiales is also refusing to step down. He's refusing to resign.
Spring Lake Police and the Highway Patrol are investigating a crash that sent a state representative in the hospital. Marvin Lucas was hurt in the crash near his Spring Lake home. It happened on Hedgemore Circle around 9 Saturday morning. Lucas lost control of the truck, hit a house, then a tree. He is undergoing testing and observation at Cape Fear Valley Medical Center. Wake County authorities are investigating a crash in southern Wake County. It happened last night off NC 42 near Johnston Road, south of Garner. You can see at least one vehicle was heavily damaged. No word on injuries or charges.
Dozens of gas stations across Florida's Gulf Coast are dealing with a fuel contamination problem as Tropical Storm Idalia approaches. The fuel in question was supplied by Citgo. Any regular fuel purchased after 10 a.m. Saturday could be cross-mixed with diesel. The contamination could cause engine problems for some people. All gas stations involved have been asked to stop selling gasoline until the fuel is replaced and the tanks have been cleaned. Could cause a major problem here as the storm rolls in and gets closer and people are trying to get out.
And that storm gaining strength. We'll talk about its track in just a moment. First, let's talk about our potential for severe weather today, Elizabeth.
I was out just a little while ago, and there were a few breaks in the clouds. And the more sunshine that we end up seeing, of course, the more unstable our atmosphere will become, the better chance we'll have of seeing some severe storms. We have a boundary that's sitting here. It was with us yesterday. It'll likely be with us today and all of tomorrow. And that's going to be a focus for some thunderstorms to develop. And we have, just in the last 15 minutes, we talked about this at the beginning of the newscast, and all we were looking at is maybe a couple of showers there just to the east of Goldsboro and up around Danville. And all of a sudden, in the last 15 minutes, we have a lot of little tiny cells that are starting to pop up. Some of these in our northern counties, one of those right there at Falls Lake, and a few more of those, say, back near Hillsboro and up around Lewisburg, there's one. And then heading down to the south, just north of Southern Pines, north of Carthage, teeny tiny little cells. These will continue to grow larger. As a matter of fact, I'll check in with you again at 12:45, and there'll probably be even more of them. And they're going to be bigger, and they're going to be dropping some heavy rain. We do have that level 1 risk for severe storms. The severe threat for today is going to be wind damage, but we are likely to have heavy rain with these systems. Back to our north and west, there have been a number of flood warnings, and then the same thing just east of Goldsboro. There was a flood warning earlier as well. So lots of moisture in the atmosphere. We just need to have something to kick off some of those showers, and that will likely happen along that boundary, especially as we get into our afternoon heating. Storms are likely to continue through the evening commute and all the way past midnight. Watch how things really start to blow up as we get closer to midnight. Take a look at Lewisburg. This is a tiny, itsy bitsy little cell that's producing some rain. So rain's coming down right there in downtown Lewisburg, right by the Tar River. 80 degrees is our temperature. Our dew point's at 73. That's a fairly high dew point. That just means there's lots of moisture in the atmosphere. And around town, looking at 85 for the high in Raleigh, 84 in Durham, 88 in Fayetteville. Fayetteville. Of course, we're going to get back to Tropical Storm Idalia, 80 miles south of the western tip of Cuba, moving north at 8 miles per hour, winds at 65 miles per hour. And if you haven't heard, it does look like it is going to be a major hurricane on Wednesday morning when it makes landfall here in Florida, as much as 11 feet of storm surge. This is a very shallow area. It's low lying. So that storm surge is going to be a big deal with the system. Then it moves on shore here and sort of hugs the coast of South Carolina and North Carolina right over Wilmington, but is out and away by the time we get to 8 a.m. Friday. So this is really going to be a Wednesday night, Thursday sort of event for us. We take a look at the storm here, and we'll pause it right as it's making landfall there at 9 a.m. on Wednesday. And then it hugs the coast, and you can see very close to Wilmington at 3 a.m. on Thursday, and then it continues to travel eastward. We'll stop it there at 8 p.m. And you can see even all the rain is out of North Carolina. Now, these computer models may change a little bit, but that's the current look. We have a low to medium risk for flooding across our viewing area, but down in Wilmington, it's a high risk where they can see as much as 5 inches right along the coast with that orange band. But for us, it'll range from 1.5 inches in the north to as much as 4 inches down to the south. Flash flooding is possible, again, with that low to medium risk. Our winds gusting 20 to 35 miles per hour. I'm going to walk you through the hour-by-hour winds for Thursday coming up in about 30 minutes. But we're fortunate with this. Due to the position of the center of the storm, tornadoes are unlikely with this particular system. Looking at some quiet weather between now and Thursday, minus a few isolated thunderstorms. But Thursday will be cool when the storm comes through. It's 74, and then we dry out and warm up Saturday and Sunday.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Well, coming up this afternoon on WRAL, if a trip to Europe is still on your to-do list, you'll need to take a few extra steps to get there. Today at 4, learn why the EU has set up a new process for international travelers.
Speaking of travel, 5 on your side has some advice tonight at 6.
Countless items probably get lost at RDU Airport every year, but with the help of an AirTag, one man found his missing item at a random home. We'll tell you what he did next and break down what you should do if you find yourself in a similar situation.
Interesting. Delta Airlines is making changes to manage in-flight emergencies. The new technology in place and the timeline to fit all Delta airplanes.
Plus, we've all heard that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. But not all breakfast foods are created equal. The ingredients that can help set you up for a good day.
All right, Beaufort's hanging in there beautifully this noon. Looks good down by the coast right now, anyway, as you look live at Beaufort, and you watch WRAL News, available on Spectrum and the WRAL app on your TV or streaming device. Some Americans may be ready for a generous helping of artificial intelligence for tracking major tasks. 43% of American consumers are comfortable with generative artificial intelligence. They would use it to help solve financial problems like debt, budgeting, and retirement. Consumers who have used generative AI before trust it more than human help.
Delta Airlines is upgrading its abilities to help passengers with onboard medical emergencies. MedLink gives crews direct access to doctors on the ground through a mobile app. Other equipment includes pulse oximeters, automatic blood pressure cuffs, and medical-grade stethoscopes. The goal is to have all upgrades completed by the end of the year. The yearly anticipated staycation at a summer rental spot has taken a decrease across the country. Summer hotspots like Cape Cod and Southern California are seeing a drop in visitors and vacation rentals. During the pandemic, people moved toward buying second homes and making their own vacation rentals. Rental rates are continuously dropping in Orlando, the Jersey Shore, and San Diego.
Wristwatch thefts could be on the rise this year. The Watch Register, a major global database that tracks luxury watch thefts, says watches being lost or stolen has spiked more than 100% since last year. The register says 6,800 watches were either lost or stolen last year. The value of those watches is much more than $1 billion. Still to come here on WRAL, we will take a look at how people along Florida's Gulf Coast are preparing for what is now Tropical Storm Idalia. The storm is forecast to become a hurricane as it approaches Florida.
Also, we'll continue our back-to-school coverage in Durham. The efforts by that school system to fill teacher vacancies for the new school year. First, here's a look at the winning lottery numbers.
shot in 4K ultra high definition. Your number one source for local news. WRAL News. Coverage you can count on.
Tropical storm Idalia is now expected to grow into a major hurricane by the time it reaches Florida late tomorrow. Forecasters are warning people to prepare for severe weather, including potentially deadly storm surge.
Robert Ray explains the people there could see up to 11 feet of storm surge.
Idalia is gaining strength in the warm Gulf of Mexico waters as it churns toward Florida. The storm is threatening the state's west coast with heavy rain, gusty winds, and life-threatening storm surge. Dozens of counties are under a state of emergency.
The key is to not be in those areas that are going to be hit with big-time storm surge and that are going to potentially have life-threatening situations.
Forecasters expect Idalia to become a Category 3 hurricane before making landfall in Florida on Wednesday. Storm surge as high as 11 feet could come ashore and potentially cause destructive flooding in coastal communities.
Keep them like that.
Folks on Florida's west coast are stocking up on supplies and filling sandbags ahead of Idalia's arrival.
I have my mom in the car and she doesn't have a ride, so I'm driving her to get some of the sandbags, getting her prepared, and then I'll start preparing myself.
Florida officials say more than 1,000 National Guardsmen have been mobilized. High water vehicles and aircraft are also on standby for potential rescue efforts. First responders are urging people to know their evacuation routes and have at least a half a tank of gas in case they need to leave town.
If anything happens, storm surges, you know where to go to. Your family members who are not as tech savvy, help them know their evacuation zones as well.
That's Robert Ray reporting, and forecasters expect Idalia to bring heavy storm surge and winds as far up into the Carolinas. Elizabeth Gardner is tracking the tropics. She'll join us again with the local effect we might expect here. She'll be back in 10 minutes.
The first day of school holds lots of excitement and also some stress. In Durham, every bus route is covered by a driver, but the district still needs to hire more teachers. WRAL's Monica Casey has a look at the students and teachers heading back to school in the Bull City.
Durham Public Schools are in a much better staffing position than they were this time last year. But with more than 100 teacher vacancies, the superintendent tells me there is still work to be done. More than 600 elementary school students arrived this morning at Forest View. It's a diverse population of learners with 40 languages represented.
Our largest population of students at this school are Spanish-speaking students, about 36%. So it's something that we focus on a daily basis.
Principal James Boyce tells me the school is focused on educating the whole student with a morning circle to start the day.
We are working to implement a curriculum during that time that specifically focuses on tying the social emotional needs with the academic needs.
Parents like Lokesh Balaji love the school and the people working there.
They pretty much remember every kid's name. They pretty much remember parents as well.
Forest View is fully staffed, but that's not the case at every Durham public school. At the latest count last week, DPS still needs to hire 110 teachers, a big improvement over last year's vacancies of 250.
We would love to be at zero vacancy at this point. The fact that we still have those vacancies and we continue really recruiting.
In Durham, Monica Casey, WRAL News.
Now to Cumberland County, where the district welcomed back more than 50,000 students this morning. Gilbert Bay spoke with Superintendent Marvin Connolly about this year's focus.
Well, it's all about the numbers. Right now, 50,000 students back in school here. We had a chance to speak to one teacher who grew up here in Cumberland County, went to school here, and now she teaches here.
I know a little bit about you, but I want to know even more about you.
This is an exciting and emotional day for Janicia Dixon. She's a product of the Cumberland County school system and learned how to teach at Fayetteville State University.
And so to now be teaching where I learned means a lot to me. It's foundation. It was the groundwork that got me where I am today.
Now it's time to pass that knowledge on to her third grade class here at Galberry Farm Elementary School.
So in third grade, it's more comprehension and not just learning to read, but they have to apply what they're reading and then show what they know. So that's a big challenge for them.
There's a big challenge for this man, too. Dr. Marvin Connolly is the Cumberland County School Superintendent. He says the pandemic 3 years ago set students behind.
So we'll focus on learning loss, recovery, as well as safety. Safety is number one.
So this was an emotional day for students and parents. I saw one father dropping off his son in tears. A teacher told him, "Don't worry, he'll be back home this afternoon." In Hope Mills, Gilbert Bays, WRAL News.
We all pull through, but sometimes the days are tough. WRAL is your back-to-school headquarters. You can check school bus route changes, start times, and safety measures on WRAL.com or in our news app. This information is available for you around the clock.
Look, sometimes you just got to cry your tears in your car and have your alone time as a parent. Students at Zebulon Elementary School will have a parade to welcome them back to school this morning. Families and community members are invited to cheer the kids on starting at 7:45 this morning. The town of Zebulon and Knightdale Wake Forest Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta are partnering to put the parade on. Before you eat, read the label. The ingredients you do not want to see listed among the first 5 of any product you eat.
Plus, Americans invested in their mental health during the pandemic. A look at how much adults with health insurance spent on mental health services.
Happening right now in the WRAL Live Center, a really scary situation in Pompano Beach, Florida, after a fire rescue helicopter crashed into an apartment complex. You'll start to see it here spin out of control. 4 people were hurt after this chopper went down. Amazingly, they are all in fair condition. They're okay. Authorities said the crash happened near an airfield as the helicopter was actually on its way to an emergency call. Just before it crashed, you can see the smoke coming from the tail of that helicopter. The NTSB is investigating this afternoon. Again, all 4 people, 2 on the helicopter and 2 inside that apartment complex, are okay this afternoon.
Michelle, thanks. The Food and Drug Administration has issued an urgent recall for some eye drops. The agency says Dr. Burns' MSM drops, 5% solution, and Light Eyes MSM eye drops may contain bacteria and fungi. According to the FDA, people using these products could develop minor to serious vision-threatening infections, some of which that could lead to life-threatening issues. Mental health spending has surged in the U.S. since the pandemic. American spending on mental health with private insurance jumped 54% between March 2020 and August 2022. The average spending rate was more than $3.5 million per 10,000 patients monthly, compared to about $2.3 million pre-pandemic. Anxiety and depression disorders saw the steepest increase, followed by post-traumatic stress disorder, bipolar disorder, and schizophrenia.
When it comes to breakfast foods, it's important to look at the product labels to be sure you're getting a nutritious meal. When reading those product labels, avoid items that have sugar or high fructose corn syrup listed in the first 5 ingredients. Dietitians recommend you find foods low in sugar because it can give you an immediate rush, but an hour or so later, your blood sugar will drop and leave you feeling tired and hungry again. Next, you'll want to focus on fiber, which will help you feel fuller longer.
The marketing is outstanding with a lot of these products, and they really make it look so delicious. And the wording on it really does make it feel like it's going to be healthier for you. But then when you look back on the food label and you see that it's got tons of sugar, processed flour, no fiber, those are the things that aren't going to set you up for having a good morning.
And you can always add fiber to your breakfast by mixing in flax or chia seeds. Nuts are also a good source of fiber as well.
Still to come, Simone Biles notches another title. What's next for the Olympic champion on her successful comeback?
And the computer that launched a major tech giant. How much this Apple I computer sold for at auction over the weekend.
Simone Biles is back. This past weekend, Biles dominated the U.S. Classic in San Jose.
She sure did. NBC's Emily Aketa reports on her historic 8th all-around title at the U.S. Gymnastics Championships.
Simone Biles has gone where no one's ever gone before.
The greatest of all time, landing another all-around crown, and this one's for the record books. The crowd roaring their approval with a standing ovation for Simone Biles, who clinched her 8th win at the U.S. Championships in San Jose, California this weekend, smashing a record first set in the 1930s.
It's really amazing. Everybody in here believes in me, and my teammates believe in me, my coaches, my family, everyone. So I just need to start believing in myself a little bit more.
She's the only woman to ever nail the incredibly difficult Yurchenko double pike vault in competition, and she did it just about flawlessly, leaving no doubts in fans and judges' minds. Biles is back. She stayed locked in through the second day of competition Sunday, and no sign remaining of the twisties that overcame Biles at the Tokyo Olympics, causing her to withdraw from most of her events.
To do something that I've done forever and just not be able to do it because of everything I've gone through is really crazy.
The 26-year-old powerhouse has been chasing this dream almost all her life, here winning the World Championships in 2013.
It hasn't really sunken in yet, but I know what I've done is a big accomplishment.
Now, a decade later, she's earned a jaw-dropping 7 Olympic and 25 World Championship medals, with the competition feeling fiercer than ever.
But it might be the most accomplished field that we've had at the U.S. Championships.
The field of phenoms are battling for just 5 spots at the World Championships in Antwerp next month, and then the 2024 Olympics in Paris. A standout performance from Shailene Jones, the World 2022 silver medalist, earned her second place behind Biles.
She is a must-have on that World Championship team.
And fellow world medalist, 19-year-old Liam Wong, took home third. But for now, Simone Biles remains in a league of her own.
For world champions, Simone Biles!
She's pretty good. That was Emily Aketa reporting. The next challenge for Biles will be in Belgium in late September at the World Championships. She hopes to add to her incredible resume 25 World Championship medals, 18 golds. Then next summer, Biles will likely have her eyes set on joining Team USA at the Paris Olympic Games.
We have some good news to report here in the Live Center. Music icon Elton John is back home today after he was briefly hospitalized for a fall. He was at his home in Nice, France, when he fell and was taken to the hospital yesterday. He was monitored overnight as a precautionary measure, but doctors say after a quick checkup, he was able to be released and he is in good health today.
That is a good sign.
Yeah. No major issues weather-wise for the morning commute, but for the ride back home from school for kids, we could see some showers, maybe some storms.
If you remember at the beginning of the weathercast, we were talking about a few isolated cells and it started to pop up. We have this boundary here and we'll go ahead and zoom in. And a few of these were starting to pop up and they are becoming a bit more numerous at this point, especially between St. Creedmoor and Wake Forest. We have some heavy rain almost starting to make a line there up to the north of Lewisburg. And boy, we pulled up that camera and the rain was really falling pretty heavily in Lewisburg. More of these little cells popping up in other spots. A few of those over around Durham and Chapel Hill. One of those just south of Roxborough. We'll head down to the south. And we're seeing a few of those there around Lee County and then down here in Moore County too, from Southern Pines to Bass. A little bit of sunshine trying to break through the clouds is helping to fuel some of these tiny little cells that will grow into larger cells as we get through the afternoon. This is an update to our level 1 risk for severe storms, and the Storm Prediction Center took a lot of our northern counties, or at least parts of the northern counties out, but still from the Triangle area southward, we're under that level 1 risk. Heavy rain is likely with these cells, and 1 or 2 of them could produce some wind damage as well. So we take a look at Futurecast, and you can see these little cells continuing to pop up. There's 3 o'clock this afternoon. There's 5 o'clock. Now, there are going to be plenty of spaces where it isn't raining, but if you find yourself under one of those cells, that rain's probably going to be fairly heavy. And then it looks more widespread initially around midnight or so, and then that fizzles out by tomorrow morning. Mostly cloudy tomorrow. At lunchtime, a few breaks in the clouds, and then again, a chance of some scattered storms. This is the new version of our computer model. The newer run shows some thunderstorms developing a little earlier, around 5 o'clock, and then they just continue to pop up, and even a little line of thunderstorms there as we get closer to midnight on Tuesday night. Well, let's take another look at Tropical Storm Idalia, looking at 80 miles south of Cuba with winds at 65 miles per hour. Of course, they're getting ready in Florida already because this is just under 2 days from making landfall. So you can see the purple here along on the west coast, that is a hurricane warning. Hurricane watch just inland down to the south tropical storm warning. So all the warnings and watches have been issued so folks can start to get prepared. This is a look at the storm surge warning as well. Here in purple, it looks worst here just north of Tampa until you get around the corner there. That's going to be greater than 9 feet. In some places, it's 11 feet of storm surge expected. The storm likely to make landfall at around 8 a.m. on Wednesday with 115 mile per hour winds. It moves across the Florida Panhandle and across parts of Georgia and then hugs the coast up to North Carolina. We'll likely see it here near Wilmington at around 8 a.m. on Thursday. And of course, that will spread rain northward. Wind gusts as well. You can see some really strong winds with the system as it's coming on shore here. Finally, at level 3, category 3 hurricane as it's making landfall. And then we're looking at winds on our coast up to 50 miles per hour across most of our viewing area. It's going to be closer to, say, 25, 30 mile per hour winds. And that's what we're expecting. Of course, we have Hurricane Franklin out there as well. That's a category 4 storm right now. And of course, the wave heights are going to be big. We're looking at the potential for some erosion with that storm. On Thursday, when the rain affects us along with the wind, it's going to be a cool day, 74. Then we dry out and warm up for the weekend.
A big change coming to Paris just in time for the 2024 Olympic Games. How a referendum could impact crowds during the Summer Games.
As we wrap things up, here's a look at a few of the headlines we're following today. Tropical storm Idalia now expected to rapidly intensify into a major hurricane by the time it makes landfall in Florida. Both storm surge warnings and hurricane warnings have been issued in the Sunshine State. The WRAL Severe Weather Team is watching this storm and its potential impact to North Carolina.
The boyfriend charged with murdering Alicia Watts appeared in court for the first time. The judge assigned James Dunmore an attorney until he can be represented by a capital defender. If convicted of Watts' murder, Dunmore faces life in prison without parole or the death penalty.
It's the first day of school for traditional calendar students for Wake County Public Schools. Parents were warned to expect delays due to a shortage of school bus drivers. We counted 66 delays reported through the Here Comes the Bus app. Most of those buses were running 20 to 35 minutes behind. One bus to South Gardner High School was delayed by an hour, and 2 buses had mechanical issues, causing delays up to 40 minutes.
An anonymous buyer is now the owner of one of the computers that helped start one of the biggest tech companies in the world. A fully operational Apple I computer sold for $223,000. It originally sold for more than $650. The computer also features co-founder Steve Wozniak's signature. Around 200 Apple I's, I should say, were made in 1976 and 1977. An Apple I prototype sold last year for nearly $700,000. Some new high-speed fun is coming to Morrisville. Rush Hour Karting is opening a multi-level indoor go-kart track. You can also enjoy golf simulators, racing simulators, axe throwing, and more. A grand opening begins today at 4. The new Fun Center is located on Wake Competition Center Lane off McCrimmon Parkway.
Looks fun. This week, Paris will become one of the only cities in Europe with an outright ban on rented e-scooters. The change comes ahead of the 2024 Olympics. In April, lawmakers put a referendum before Parisian voters. 90% voted to have them removed. The 3 firms with e-scooter licenses in the French capital have a combined 15,000 scooters in the city. They must remove them by the September 1st deadline.
Pet of the day comes to us from Safe Haven for Cats. This is Benjamin. He's a quiet, mature orange tabby. Benjamin came to Safe Haven from Wilson County, where difficult circumstances made it impossible for his previous family to keep him. He's looking forward to being in a home that is peaceful and full of kindness toward kitties. Safe Haven for Cats is open for adoptions every day but Monday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. After Labor Day, the shelter will host Meowtastic Mondays, so check their website for details on that.
Next year, it will no longer be free to travel to Europe. Coming up at 4 o'clock, why you'll soon have to fill out an online travel authorization and how much it's going to cost you. NBC News Daily is next on WRAL, your next local news update in 30 minutes.
You can also get breaking news updates anytime with our WRAL News app. A little bit of sun and clouds out there for you to enjoy. Have a great day.
Keep watching WRAL News over the air Channel 34 and Spectrum Channel 1257.